welcome. I'm going to talk about employment authorization documents today, and my name is Amir Rasoulour. So there's been some good changes that we're going to let you know about. So there's actually great news, not just good news, great news. So a lot of changes have been made to asylum-based employment authorization documents under the Trump administration, but from a lawsuit that took place, the USCIS will no longer implement those rules. So some of the changes that had taken place were that you couldn't apply until 1 year after filing your I-589, disqualifications for certain applicants based on their manner of entry, and then some disqualifications if there was an applicant caused delay, even if 1 year had already been completed. So that's no longer the case. It's going back to what the rules were before. And the government has said that they're not going to appeal. So it's safely in place that the rules are going back to what they were before. So what were the rules before? Because it's been such a long time, let's refresh our memories what the rules were before. So basically, in order to apply for employment authorization, your first one, the initial one, you can apply 150 days after your I-589 is received by the USCIS or filed with the court. And then your work permit will be issued at 180 days. So in other words, 6 months after you file for asylum, you'll have work authorization, and you'll also have your Social Security number at that time. An important thing is that if you in any way delay that period, it stops the clock. So so let's say, for example, you apply for asylum with the USCIS, and 4 months into it, you get a notice to get fingerprinted. You get a biometrics notice. And then you can't attend that biometrics appointment for whatever reason. You've delayed your application, right? You've delayed the adjudication of your 589. So that could be an applicant caused delay. And then that will basically stop the clock until you do that thing that you were supposed to do, and then it'll start counting again towards the 150 days. Another example would be if you get scheduled for your asylum interview and you request for it to be rescheduled, that's going to stop the clock, and it'll start again once you actually once you're scheduled again and you go to your interview. So as long as you don't delay anything, sometimes you have to delay things for whatever reason, but if you don't delay anything, you can safely file 150 days after it's filed, and you should have your employment authorization 30 days after that. Wait. The filing fee is $410. Now my mind is blanking whether the first one has a filing fee or not. We'll double check that. I believe the filing fee is $400. The filing fee for renewals is definitely $410. It was $495 under the Trump era rules, because they were requiring that you also paid for biometrics. But the filing fee has gone back down to $410. Let me double check if I can't remember if the initial one requires a filing fee or not. We'll check. We're going to look at the website and we're going to look at an application, so we can double check there. Okay, what do you include in your application? So you're going to include 2 passport style photos of yourself. And on the back of that, you want to write your name and you want to write your A number in pencil. You can do a check or a money order in the amount of $410. There's the form. It's the form I-765, and we will look up. We'll look at that application together. If you have a form of photo ID, I always include it. So your passport, a driver's license, a national ID, like a cedula, whatever it is that you have. And then your I-94, if you entered lawfully, I can show you also how to look up your I-94. And then you want to include your asylum receipt notice because to show that it's actually been filed. So I think for many people here, you're applying affirmatively with the USCIS. So it would be what you get back from the USCIS saying that it's been filed with that date. And then you want to make sure to count 150 days, not 5 months, but 150 days from that date, because it might not be exactly 5 months. So don't assume if it's like January 4th, that May 4th is 150 days. It might be different because every month has a different amount of days. So really count it. And that's what you file. Where do you file it and what's your category? For a pending asylum case, your category is C8. So there's a part in the form where they're going to ask you under what category you're filing for asylum, and yours would be C8. And then this is where you actually mail the application to, if you're based in New York.
Amir, just
Yes.
one question, because I think it's very quick for you to respond. They ask, is it calendar days or regular day, 150 days?
Just
or
regular
business?
days, not business days, just 150 days. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then I'll give you a moment to write this down. So if you're in New York, you would send here. Actually, maybe all of them go here. Again, we'll double check on the website. All the information is on the website. So when we go to it, I can show you where you can access that information. Okay, so when do you file your renewal? That's a really good question. There's a lot of changes that are going on right now in terms of processing times with the USCIS. I would say probably still the way to think about it is to file your renewal 180 days, or within that 6-month period before your employment authorization document expires. Not sooner, but so you can start filing about 6 months beforehand. And then once you file, you'll get a receipt notice from immigration, and that receipt notice serves as an automatic 180-day extension on your current work permit. So it's not 180 days from the day you file, it's 180 days from the expiration of your current work permit. So let's say your work permit expires in May and you filed your extension in March. So your receipt will say March and it'll say you have a 180-day extension. But remember that 180-day extension is not from March when you filed, but from the expiration of your employment authorization document. So in other words, if your employment authorization document expires in March, it'll be good until, I'm sorry, if it expired in May, it'll be good until November. So showing your expired work permit along with proof of filing for your renewal should be enough to show that you're still work authorized. Okay. And it's important that you file before your work permit expires because you don't get that automatic extension if you file after. It has to be filed before. So that's something just important to know. Now, as of now, it's still 180-day extensions, but the USCIS has proposed on at the end of March a lot of things to sort of speed up processing times, because as all of you know, everything in immigration is just taking so long. And one of those things that's taking so long are renewal EADs. I recently had one approved that we filed last May, so it took 11 months. So, you know, for this certain individual, we didn't file the 6 months before the extension. So there was that 180-day extension that this individual got on their work permit expired, and they still hadn't gotten an adjudication of their renewal yet. So there was a period where this person was not work authorized. So what immigration is proposing is to extend it. I don't know how much it's going to be extended to. It might be extended to 1 year. As far as I know, at least when I made this PowerPoint earlier this week, it hadn't been stated exactly yet what it was. But it might change. It might change to a 1 year extension, which would be great. And so that might be something that we'll be seeing in the future. And we'll see it as other renewals go through. Another thing which, and I don't know if anyone else has had experience with this, I just submitted a renewal and it got approved extremely quickly. And I don't know if that was just a fluke or if this is something new that they're doing for new employment authorization documents. So I guess what I can say is that definitely the USCIS is actually doing something now about these processing times, and I'm seeing it in some of my other cases, not just asylum, but in other types of cases too, where more recently filed cases are being scheduled or EADs are being approved much quicker. So I'm kind of hopeful that these really severe backlogs that we've been experiencing for years might actually start going away. So, so it's all good news. In any case, at this point, I would still say, you know, it might just be best, at least how things are right now. If you have a renewal, file it 180 days before. Let's say you've been granted asylum. I just bring this up because you don't, first of all, congratulations on being granted asylum. And secondly, when you're granted asylum, at least at the asylum offices, you'll get a new employment authorization document automatically. It's just automatically generated and sent to you under a different category, which is category A5. I believe for a 2-year period, all of these EADs are now being issued for 2 years. The thing is, once that one expires, you don't actually need to renew it. When you get an approved asylum, you get an I-94 stating that you've been approved asylum or that you've been granted asylum, and that's actually good enough to show that you're work authorized. So just to know that you don't necessarily need an employment authorization document to demonstrate your work authorized. And that's not just in the asylum context, that's in other kinds of visas too, like certain work visas. You don't have an employment authorization document. Your I-94 enough and your visa is enough to show that you're work authorized. And it's the same when you're in asylee status. So unless you need it for another reason, like as a form of ID, because you might not have your passport anymore at that time, you don't really need to do it, and you don't need to pay for an additional EAD. Okay, so let's go through an EAD application. Actually, maybe first I'll show how you look up your I-94 in case anyone needs to look it up. I always just do this. I go CPB, Custom Border Patrol, I-94 in my Google search, and then it'll pop up right here. Sorry, I'm just trying to move this. and it's the I-94 official website. And you go here. And what you would want to include is this one, get most recent I-94. You agree to the terms. And then you enter your information from when you last entered, and the I-94 generates. So in case anyone needs to do that, it's really quite easy to do.
Amir, can I just interject here that it's really important to verify that the website is the one that you've pulled out, dhs.gov, and not anything else where you could be required to put information and give it away to people who don't need to have it.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, all of them should have this GOV for government at the end. So
can you put that in the chat, Fabienne?
Sorry?
Can you write this in the chat to everyone?
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And so then it would be the same thing for USCIS. So the USCIS website, I believe there's a USCIS.com, which is like a fraudulent website, but you want to make sure you go to USCIS.gov.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure, well, I won't check right now, but you want to make sure to go to USCIS.gov. So when you get to this website, this very user-friendly website, you want to click here at the top, forms. And then all forms. And then where it says search by content, enter I-765 and search. And here is the application for employment authorization. This is what needs to be filled out. You can see there's lots and lots of alerts going on. This one is relevant to asylum seekers. So the USCIS stops applying certain EAD provisions for asylum applicants and no longer requires biometric services fee. So this is what we were just talking about. And they're going back to what the rules were before. Let me just go to filing fees. Because I honestly can't remember now if the initial needs a filing fee. Does anyone remember if the initial EAD needs a filing fee?
Remember, it used to be
It's
free.
free.
The first one is free, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be free. It's just a renewal was not
Yeah.
free.
Okay. So it should go back to that. So the initial one is free. Thank you. And then from then on, it's going to be $410. It's not going to be $495. And then just in terms of where to file, I just want to double check that I gave the right address. So asylees, refugees, and their spouses. Yeah, so all of them. So you would be C8 asylum applicant. It's that address that I put in the PowerPoint. So no matter where you live in the United States, you're going to file it at the same location here in Dallas at the Texas Service Center. Okay. So let's go back again and look at just look at the form. So here you can find the actual form. It says forms and documents download, and you click on form I-765. This is probably going to get updated. It hasn't been yet, but it's going to very likely get updated due to because of the result of this lawsuit and the changes to asylum applications. But if it changes, it's going to change very minimally, and I'll show you which part will probably change. So if you're doing this on your own, you know, your reason for applying, if it's your very first one, you're going to click initial permission to accept employment. If it's a renewal, you're going to click 1C, renewal of my permission to accept employment. And in that case, make sure you make a photocopy front and back of your old employment authorization document. It's also possible to use this form to replace your employment authorization card if you lose it. But hopefully you'll be using it mainly for either 1A or 1C. Here, put the name, your full legal name, whatever's on your asylum receipt, okay, on your asylum application. You may have put other names on your 589 as well. You can list those all here in the second column, but here in this first column, put whatever the main principal name you put on your I-589. Here you put a US mailing address. So importantly, this is the mailing address. This is where you want it to get sent. If for whatever reason, your address is not a safe address to get mail, for whatever reason, mail is getting stolen, your landlord's taking the mail, if it's just not a good place, you can put a different address here for it to be sent to. And then for number 6, where it says, is your current mailing address the same as your physical address? You would say no, and then you could put in what immigration has on file as your physical address. If it's the same and you have no problem with your mail, you just put it here. But that's, you don't need to worry if you're having trouble getting mail. If you have someone else who can accept it for you, you can certainly put that down as the mailing address. Okay, your A number, this is the number that's on your receipt notice for immigration. So it's that 9-digit number that begins with A. A USCIS online account number, I always leave this blank. If you don't have one, most people don't have one. So you can just leave this one blank, no problem. You put your gender, you put your marital status. If your marital status has changed, let's say this is a renewal, and in the time since you filed your I-589, you got divorced or you got married, then I would include proof of that change with your application. So let's say you got married. In addition to those documents you're submitting, I would also submit your marriage certificate, just so, because they might send a request for evidence otherwise. They might not, but I just include it. Or if you get divorced, same thing. If you get divorced, just include the divorce certificate so they have that information on file. Have you previously filed Form I-765? I don't know, you need to answer that yes or no, depending on your situation. If it's not your first work permit, then you would answer yes. And then do you have, has the Social Security Administration ever officially issued you a Social Security card? So this is an official Social Security card. It's not uncommon that individuals may use fake Social Security numbers. Do not put that information here if ever you had used a fake Social Security number. That's not what they're asking for. They're asking for an official one from the Social Security Administration. You don't need to disclose that information to immigration. So if you do have a Social Security number, put it in here. If not, you can ask for the Social Security Administration to issue you one. So if you want that, you hit yes here for number 14. You hit yes here for number 15, that you authorize the disclosure of this information to the Social Security Administration. And then you need to include your father's and your mother's name here. One thing I have to say, and I don't know the answer to this, I always request Social Security numbers for clients, and I would say 50% of the time it never comes. So I don't know why, I don't know what's going on, but I have no answer. I would say if you don't get your Social Security, because it's not going to come from the same agency. One is coming from, your work permit comes from USCIS, your other one comes from the Social Security Administration. And I just don't know the answer. If you get your work permit and you don't get your Social Security card, even though you requested it, I would say within a week or two after you get your work permit, just make an appointment to go to the Social Security Administration and get your Social Security card. Don't wait around for it, and there's nothing that that I know of that immigration will do to remedy it. So I'd say 50% of the time it doesn't come. Okay, here you put your countries of citizenship. For most people, it would be 1, but presumably for some people it might be 2. If you do have 2 countries of citizenship and you're applying for asylum, hopefully you addressed that in your asylum application. And if not, you want to set up a legal consultation about that, because that could cause problems. Here you put, pretty self-explanatory, your place of birth, date of birth, and your I-94. If you don't have your I-94, I just told you how you can look it up. If you cross the border, you don't have an I-94. But if you entered at a port of entry, you would have an I-94. Passport number of your most recently issued passport. Travel document, presumably, most of you probably entered with a passport. A travel document would be something other than a passport that you would have used to travel. Most likely it's not the case. If it is, you put that information here, but otherwise just put not applicable, or, NA. The country that issued it, expiration date, the date of your last arrival, on or about. So if you entered at a port of entry, you should have a specific date of entry. If you entered without inspection, you could put approximately when it was that you crossed the border. And likewise, place of your last arrival, if it's at a port of entry, it will be specific. If it was over the border, you can put the best as you know. I mean, I put as general as Mexico-Texas border. Sometimes I put more specifically closer to where it was. It doesn't seem to make a difference in terms of getting these approved. What was your immigration status when you last arrived? So you just put whatever that was. And if you had crossed the border, you could put no status, or you could put iwi, entered without inspection, or you could just put no status. And then for your current immigration status, I always put asylum pending, because your application is pending. That's just what I always put. Your SEVIS number, this would only be if you were a student. So if you're ever a student here in F1, you could put the SEVIS number if you have one. And then here, eligibility category. This is where you put the basis for this work permit application, because this work permit application is used for many, many different reasons for getting it. So for immigration, for asylum, you're going to put a C8. And then you'll see for the next questions, they're for specific categories. So you see here, question number 28 is for C3C. That doesn't apply to you because you're C8. If we go to question 29, it says C26. That doesn't apply to you because you're C8. Now, if we go to 30, it says C8. Now, this is what I believe that they're going to revise when they revise the EAD applications, because I don't see how these questions are going to be important for employment authorization issuance anymore, because these were questions that were were relevant under the Trump rules. But in any case, for the time being, they still exist here on this form. So as long as this form exists and you're under category C8, you should answer them. So the first question, have you ever been arrested for and/or charged with and/or convicted of any crime in any country? This throws a lot of asylum seekers off, because you very well may have been arrested in your home country, and that very well may be the basis of why you're applying for asylum. It might be one of your grounds of persecution. So this isn't anything to be worried about having to answer yes here. If you were arrested, in your home country, presumably you brought it up also in your I-589 application, you would answer yes, and then you would give a brief explanation about it. I can't really say what you should say exactly, but normally it's just a brief explanation. If it was something that was that was an act of persecution, normally I just write very briefly, I was arrested for whatever it was. This was disclosed in my I-589, and this forms this is part of the reason I'm claiming asylum, because I was persecuted, something like that. If you have other sorts of convictions, whether here or in the United States or abroad, normally you also have to give a certificate of disposition. So those might not exist, depending if it was an arrest in your home country. That forms the basis of persecution. If you have some sort of arrest here in the United States, that's something that you would need to disclose, and you'd have to give records about it. 30B, did you enter the United States lawfully through a US port of entry? And were you inspected and admitted or paroled? So if you were inspected or admitted or paroled, in other words, you have an I-94, you can answer yes. And then you don't need to answer the rest of these questions. But if you weren't, if you cross the border, then you do need to answer these next questions, which would be 30C up through 30G. I don't think this is really probably the place to discuss what one should answer, what one shouldn't answer there. I guess, if that's something that that you need to answer yes to, you might want to talk to someone about how best to present it. But in any case, I think this is going to go away sooner than later, so it might not be on the renewals. And that's it. 31A and 31B do not apply. And then you need to make these certifications here. If you did it yourself and you read and understand English, you can check here. Just so you know, if you say you can read and understand English here, that doesn't mean at your asylum interview that you have to do it in English. It doesn't obligate you to that. So you can always do your asylum hearing and your asylum interview in your native language, even if you're fluent in English, if you choose to do that because you're more comfortable. But if you used an interpreter, make sure here to put the language that the interpreter used. So I don't know why it's not popping up, but it should be able to say what the language is. Don't put the name. So many times I put Amir Rasoulour there by accident because I'm just doing it too fast. So put the language you use to interpret. And then if anyone helped you, they should fill out this part. And that's it. You put your phone number, you sign, you print it out one-sided, you include the supporting documentation, and you send it off. And hopefully you'll have your work permits shortly. And that's all I have for you. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Amir, and we will get your PowerPoint and also distribute it to everybody that has been here so they can also have your text.
Right.
But great. So I think in the chat we have several questions. One question I think is in Spanish from Lilia. There's one question from Ruslan. I think he said that he's based in New York, but he filed to Nebraska office. He said that this is what the USCIS office had mentioned.
For a work permit?
I believe so. I'm not sure. Ruslan, are you here? Yeah, but I'm not sure. He's muted. Ruslan?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it was for renewal of the work permit. I filed to Nebraska because that's where we filed papers for previous one. I mean, it wasn't me, it was my attorney. And we, at the time when we were filing in for this renewal, we checked USCIS website, and for C8, there was a Nebraska office. So we filed there. I got notice from them, from the Nebraska office, that they received the application, and I'm still waiting for the work permit.
Yeah.
Does it matter really? It has to be Texas specifically, or it can be any office of USCIS?
I always just follow what's on the website. So that's a little bit strange to me, but let's check again where to file. So asylees, refugees, and their spouses.
Yeah, here I'm looking at their notice that I received in June of the last year.
Wait, so okay, okay, I see what you're saying. It was initially so even though you send it here, I understand what you're saying. Even though you send it here, it doesn't mean that the Texas Service Center is going to be adjudicating your application.
Oh,
this
okay.
is just where you send it. And then from here, it gets sent to different places. So your application then was sent to the Nebraska Service Center to be adjudicated, but that's not where you would initially send your I-765. You send it here.
Okay.
And then they send it everywhere else. It's like when you apply for asylum, you send it to the Vermont Service Center, but then they send it back to either the New York office in Long Island or the Newark office in New Jersey. So for your purposes, this is where you want to send it to when you're filing on your own.
Okay.
Do you mind to finish the sharings, because there's a few people asking, I believe, this same is that, they've asked for a renewal and, like many months ago and have not received it.
Yeah, that's the situation. So like I said, I just got one approved that took 11 months. And that's what the situation is. In terms of, there are some expedite criteria. I guess we could look at it to see if any of the expedite criteria would work. But otherwise, I mean, I guess you just need to know, you do have that 100, at least as of now, how things are. I think it's going to get extended to a year, but as of now, the extension is only for 180 days past the expiration of your current work permit. And if it's, and after that 180 days, yeah, you're not work authorized. I can go to the expedite criteria, because it is possible to try to expedite an employment authorization document, but it's only for certain reasons. Let me just share my screen again. So USCIS expedite. It's like very, I mean, just it's not out of processing time, so you can't ask for it to be faster just because it's taking so long. It has to be one of these things. So if there's, so let's say you're working somewhere and there's going to be a severe financial loss to the company you're working at, and you could try to get it expedited based on that. For emergencies or urgent humanitarian reasons, that might be hard. I think the only way you could maybe get an expedite in that category for your EAD would be if you work in something related to COVID-19. And I don't think the others would really apply. But if you do meet one of those two very narrow exceptions, you would call immigration and say you want to do an expedite request, and then they would email you back and ask for proof. Otherwise, I would say if you're in one of those categories where you're just waiting a long time, hopefully soon they will issue one of these. They'll start issuing the automatic extension for 1 year. It's just as of now, it's still not there. They said they're going to do it, but it's not set in stone yet, so I can't say that your work permit has been extended past 1 year yet. I guess it's something to just keep following to see when they say that. And then I can
Amir, do you think people can, I'm sorry to interject, can people, if they are in that situation where it's almost expired or already has expired, you know, the extension, now they're having problem with their employers who want to, you know, fire them, or can they tell employers, listen, the policies have changed, it's in the midst, so you shouldn't worry that we are going to have our extension, we just don't know when.
I mean, I don't know if I can advise to do that. So I guess, you know, someone would need to say what they need to say, right? But I mean, I guess according to the law, they're not work authorized at that point. So certainly it could be, sure, you could explain it, but you know, I can't say that means that you're work authorized.
Yeah, because I saw in the chat. Yeah.
So,
Anyone?
Maria, we should just emphasize for those of you out there who are going to be renewing their work permits, you should really do it as soon as you are eligible to do so, because if you can do it about 6 months before it expires, and then you tack on another 6 months, that's about a year. And within the current guidelines, you should be able to get it within that time. I'm sorry to have to say that it's that long, but if you are really thinking ahead, you should be able to get it within that time frame.
Yeah, and also let's see what's happening, because like I said, I just filed an EAD renewal for someone about 3 months before his expiration, and he got an approval within a couple weeks. So I don't know like what is going on, like what they're doing. I'm totally imagining what's going on, but my impression is that they have put out these new guidelines about how quickly they want to process things. And it seems like, at least from what I'm seeing, a lot of new things that I'm filing are getting approved or adjudicated very quickly. And then that improves their statistics, right? Because they want to show statistically, this is how long things are taking. Because I've been getting some EADs approved extremely quickly. Like, how is it that I have one that took 2 weeks and one that took 11 months? So I really can't put I would say still like exactly what Fabienne said, you know, the safest thing is to do it 180 days before. Worst case scenario, if they approve it very quickly, you got like 5 months off of what you could have potentially gotten if you had filed sooner to the expiration, but who cares? You have no lapse in your employment authorization.
Maria, do you want to go to another question?
Okay, yes. Just one quick question. You don't need to have ASAP membership now if you are applying.
So you shouldn't. I looked on their website and they say it's still a good idea to include it while you're going through this transition period. So it certainly it doesn't harm to include it. I would say if you're an ASAP member, might as well still include it. But no, you don't need ASAP membership anymore to apply within 150 days. So at the 150-day mark, maybe for the next couple months, and you're an ASAP member, maybe include it, just because perhaps not everyone got the memo, but you shouldn't need to.
Okay. Any a question from Alina? Can you have expedite request for as an essential worker? Is that?
Yeah, so that would be one of them. So if you're in so you'd have to put it within the COVID-19 context, right? But yeah, if you can make a connection between, you can try it, right? I think that would be worth trying. If you can make a connection between COVID-19 and the work that you're doing and that you're an essential worker, perhaps it would be worthwhile. And there's no harm in doing it. You call, you say you want to do an expedite request, they take your email, and then about a week later, they ask you to send them evidence. So you'd have to upload and send them evidence, and they don't give you much time to send the evidence. They give you 48 hours. And then after that, the expedite request expires.
So listen, everybody, if you feel like we haven't asked you a question or have not read it well on the chat, please like raise your hands and, you know, ask directly to our attorney, Amir. Just checking. So please, if you feel like, yeah.
I can feel a few questions. One question was about
yeah,
the person who already applied for asylum and for work permit, but has his or her interview scheduled before the time that they can apply for the work permit. I'm sorry, I should say that. So the asylum applicant interview is going to occur before the 150 days. And so does that affect at all the asylum interview or the work application? Or if he or she gets approved, I suppose it will just get, that person will be authorized, and if he or she doesn't, that it doesn't change anything.
It doesn't change anything. You still file at 150 days. You might, as long as you don't delay your asylum interview, you know, you might get your asylum decision in 2 weeks, but you might get your asylum decision in 5 months or 6 months after the interview, or even longer. So go to your interview, do what you need to do for your interviews, still keep that 150 days on the calendar. It's going to be free to file the first time anyways, so there's no harm. And if you get approved, you'll get the A5 category sent to you. And if it's still processing, or if for some reason it's referred to immigration court, you know, at least you started your work permit process, and you'll have your work permit during that time.
Great, that was Melissa's question.
I see Jason who's raising his hand. Jason, you please unmute yourself. Okay.
Yeah, hi. So I had a question about the, I guess, the new rules, because I saw on the ASAP website that one of the new rules was that they had to respond within 30 days after you submit your initial application. But then I'm also seeing on the USCIS website that they're removing that rule or something.
That's not my understanding of it. I'm not sure. Where did you see on the USCIS website that they're removing the 30-day rule?
It was under the I-765 form, application for employment authorization. It was under the asylum applicants. It says that they vacated the final rule removal of 30-day processing provision for asylum applicant related form I-765 employment authorization applications rule.
This is on the website today?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing at least.
Let me look at
I was just sort of confused because I know that they're supposed to respond within 30 days, right?
It should be within 30 days, yeah.
And is this like a new rule that's just been added on, or has?
No, I mean, under Trump, he had they had taken away or wanted to take away that 30-day provision.
Yeah.
It's like the first part right here, the first sentence you see.
No, okay. So no, this is what they vacated. So this was the rule that they vacated. The name of the rule was, yeah. This is good. It means that the rule was removal of 30-day processing provision for asylum related. So that was what Trump had put forward, and vacated it. They got rid of it. So no, 30-day rule is that great. I'm glad that you brought that up. It looks very confusing there. That was the name of the rule, and that rule is no longer in existence.
Oh, great. So we have, thank you. We have 2 more just because of time, and we're getting close to 1 o'clock. I know Ahmed Shah has a question, and René Vergas, usted tiene también. Ahmed, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just raised my question on the chat as well, but I'm going to tell it here. My question is this new change applicable to applications that are received by the date of the change and after, or applications that were received before that date is also eligible for the 150 days?
When they, for the 100, you mean for initial applications?
Yes, the initial application. Let's say someone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mean if you filed an initial application without ASAP membership before?
No. I'm asking if, let's say my asylum application was submitted in January.
Yeah.
And then this change happened
No, no,
in
it
February.
applies to you. Yeah, no. It would apply if your asylum application has already been,
Okay.
yeah, it's going to apply to, yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Ahmed?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Ahmed.
No, that was me. I raised my question.
I'm sorry. I didn't. Okay. Sorry. So there was Rene Vargas. Rene, please.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you. So just to double check, probably it's been said before. I'm sorry if I missed that. You're gonna.
Rene, you freezing. You are freezing. Do you hear him, Amir?
I don't know.
No, he's
You cut out
freezing.
all-
The notification of notice action.
Can
Can you
you-
hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah, can you repeat it from the beginning?
Okay, cheers. Yes, of course. Of course. When I received so about the 150 days that starts, for to be eligible for the application for the work permit, does it start when you get the ACS appointment notice? Like I noticed the receivement on the 11th of March.
No, it
Time
should
from there or
start-
from the date that I submitted my documents.
Yeah, from the date that they received your asylum application. So it should be from the first notice you got before the ACS notice. On
Okay.
that notice, there's something that says a received date.
Notice of receipt, yeah.
Yeah, it's the date, and on that notice, there's going to be two dates. One of the dates is the date of the notice, which is sometimes the same day, sometimes later. And then there's another date where it says the receipt date or the date it was received. You go by that date. So that's the date that
Date of receipt.
immigration received it. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
And I just want to show you, because this is another thing that I use every day. There's so much online. It's just to figure out what 150 days is. There is this thing. I just go date time calculator. It's so useful. And it's the first thing that always pops up. And you put in the date and then you add 150 days and it just tells you. Like, so for example, today, and then we know. And then you just file it on that day. So there's no counting or anything. It's just useful to know when the 150 days is.
Oh, wow. Fabian, you keep this. Great. We're going to have, unfortunately, because of time, one last question, which is from Jules. Jules, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jules. What I want to know is I have applied for renewal before the expiry date, but unfortunately, I pay the amount Trump administration was set. So they send me everything back to pay the normal amount, which is $410.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I have to apply again and send to them, expiration day have already passed. So when I receive the notice, they receive notice that they have received my application.
Yeah.
My ID in employment card have already expired. So my job let me off. And right now, apply for in employment say they want to see my card before, and I don't have my card. So I want to ask, since I have applied before the expiration date, is do I fit in a 6-month extension?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel so there's something I haven't come across that before, but there's something that I've come across it in other situations. There's something called, I'm going to write it in the chat. It's something called nunc-pro-tunc. Nunc-pro-tunc is it's a remedy when somebody files something when somebody files something late, but it wasn't their fault. It was like a technical violation. I had the same thing for another case not an EAD case where we had submitted the wrong fees also because they had changed it all of a sudden and we didn't know. And then we filed it again, but with a request that it be dated from the earlier date, that it be dated nunc pro tunc, because otherwise the person would have fallen out of status, and it got approved. In your case, I haven't seen it ever done with an EAD. I think these results are super unfair that you're telling me about, because they did suddenly change it. And I did the same thing with a client. I sent it in with the 495 without knowing. So honestly, I would say I don't know the answer to that. I think there could be an argument made to try to get it through nunc pro tunc. I wonder if this would be something that might be worth trying to get the senator's office involved, just for them to talk to somebody there, because I don't see why they couldn't backdate it, especially based on the circumstances and especially based on the really detrimental effects that it's having since it was now received later. If I were you, there is Senator Gillibrand, she's the New York senator. She actually has a really responsive group of people who attend to immigration issues. If you go to her website, there's a link there where it says request for immigration assistance. And if you contact them, someone will contact you actually quickly, and you can explain the situation and they'll sometimes intervene on your behalf. And I would say that it would definitely be worth a try to do that, because officially, according to what your receipt notice says, no, you don't get the 180-day extension since it's dated after the date of your expiry that your card expired, unfortunately. But I understand that it was really through no fault of your own, right? That these filing fees had changed. So I think for that reason, just thinking off the top of my head, I would try to get maybe some intervention, and think about whether there'd be some room for them to use their discretion to change the date.
Well, Amir, I think we're going to unfortunately leave it at the end at this. Really, thank you so much. That was so helpful. And everyone, thanks for your participation today. Don't hesitate to be in touch with us. And in any case, we'll send everyone the recording of this great presentation. So goodbye, everybody. Enjoy the good weather if you have good weather wherever you are.
Thank you for
You
everything.
too. See
Take
you
care,
soon.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.